It was an excellent day for an exorcism.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nina. Jamie unfortunately can't be with us today, but that's okay because we are joined by a very dear friend of mine, David. David is a local author here in Chicago, and we are just thrilled to have you.
It is such a joy to be with you, Nina, talking about a favorite overlooked movie of the 80s and all things horror. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Yeah. As soon as you mentioned that you wanted to do this, I was like, yes, like we have to. Like nobody talks about this movie, and you're right, it is so overlooked for like it has everything, you know?
It does, especially given when it came out, which was 1984.
Yeah.
Really ahead of its time, which we'll talk about. But yeah,
Mhm.
I'm really excited to talk with you about an overlooked movie. We talked last time about another overlooked movie of the 80s, The Changeling,
Yeah.
which I'm telling everybody to rent. It's definitely spooky season, the most wonderful time of the year. So a great time to take a look at these overlooked classics.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Changeling is one of my favorites for this time of year. It's got everything you could possibly want in a horror movie during spooky season, you know, the
Yeah.
haunted house, the ghosts, but we're going to talk about something a little different today. If you haven't figured out what we're talking about yet, that's okay. It's Night of the Comet from 1984.
Yes.
Yes. So if you aren't familiar with this movie, it is a very post apocalyptic world set in the middle of Los Angeles in the 1980s. So I'm going to give a brief synopsis really quick. All right. So the sky turns blood red, the world basically ends overnight, and somehow the only people left standing are two sisters armed with wit, hairspray, and a couple of high powered rifles. Night of the Comet gives us cannibal zombies, creepy scientists, and a wasteland that somehow still has really good lighting. It's proof that the apocalypse can have style, synth, and shoulder pads. And honestly, I respect that level of commitment.
As do I.
Yes. If civilizations are going down, at least go out with good hair, right?
Absolutely. And there is great hair in this movie. It's even commented on by one of the mad scientists. So you love those kind of internal references.
For sure. So, when was the first time you saw this movie?
So we were one of the early adapters of cable TV out in the west suburbs. So
Okay.
we got to see classics like Mommy Dearest, Close Encounters, Poltergeist, and to my complete luck of opening up the world, Night of the Comet was one of the HBO, on constant replay. So I loved this for how different it was from the other teen movies of the 80s. And I still, as an adult, will look back on this and think this was really ahead of its time
Yeah.
for a number of reasons, not only having females in the lead, fighting back, fighting for themselves, and as you said, for civilization, and looking great at the same time. But it's funny. There's humor in it. It doesn't take itself so seriously as a lot of those movies at that time did. So it's a great rewatch. I highly recommend it for spooky season and just any other time, just for the general empowerment and how unusual it was for its era.
Absolutely. Yeah. I saw this movie probably 5 years ago for the first time, and like I knew about it, but it was just like one of those that, like you said, like it just flies under the radar for so many of us. And I was just blown away by like such strong, empowering women like in this film. Like they were so cool, they were so badass, they looked amazing, and like they still had flaws. You know, we didn't like make them up to be like these like creatures that are just like so, you know,
Mm,
holier than thou, if you
right,
could say. And
right.
I feel like that's very common with women in horror when they're the final girls, you know. So I really enjoyed this movie because like they had their weaknesses, but like they still were there for each other. And like this sisterly connection is so special. And I think that's what really sets this movie apart from other horror films.
Yeah, they can still argue and fight as they do through quite a bit of this movie, but
Yeah.
the love that's there for each other is quite clear right through the end.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me see. So I guess like let's talk about the lead actress for a minute.
Yes, let's.
I'll let you start.
Mary Catherine Stewart, I mean, This is an example of a star who should have had a stellar career as the launching pad from Night of the Comet. I also really want to give props to two others, Kelly Maroney, who plays her younger sister, the Valley Girl. And we will be talking about Mary Warrenoff, certainly, who plays Audrey, one of the evil scientists. But she's not really all that evil. She's also a much deeper character, something else you tend not to see in movies like this of that era, to give that kind of depth and even that kind of ethical quandary she's going through as a trained scientist. She obviously has a soul and she wants to kind of do better. She also is one of the few women at her level, which I guess is very reflective of the time and that kind of a high scientific community. But there are some just outstanding actors throughout the movie, definitely led by women.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting that you mention Audrey because I have always loved this particular character. And, she's so intelligent, but like from the get-go, she's the only one that's willing to stand up to these guys. And like she doesn't care what it costs her.
Yeah.
Quite literally, it costs her everything.
Yes.
And like it's just refreshing to see that not only is she a woman, but she's also willing to stand up for what she believes in.
Yeah.
And, I feel like regardless of the time period, like that's always been true,
Yes.
So it's something that you don't really realize is like you see the dilemma within her because she's being told what she should do, what she shouldn't do, just go along with, what she's told, follow her orders or whatever. And I love the moment where she's talking with the sergeant or general or whatever he is, the main baddie. And he was like, you really don't like majority rules, do you? And she was like, that doesn't really benefit when, you're wrong. And I just love that I love that conversation. I think it really speaks volumes for this film.
Agreed. I also want to do a quick apology and fact check. It's Catherine Mary Stewart. I said her name incorrectly. The actress's name is Catherine Mary Stewart.
Yeah. Good call out. But yeah, like, I don't know. I think that the women in this movie are incredible, absolutely amazing. But Hector is also a very interesting character as well. He's one of the few good guys in this movie.
Yeah, he is one of the few good guys. Quite a dish.
Yeah.
Definitely a nice representation for bringing civilization forward, wherever that relationship may go in the future. But it was also an early, in my opinion, looking back, again, this was 1984, to see that there's a little diversity in the cast. They're looking for who is going to lead civilization, the cast, and then we'll certainly talk about the children that just suddenly come in. It's, for its time, kind of a diverse look at who is going to lead the future of the world in repopulating. So I thought that was also kind of a nice subtle touch. I think the actor who did that did such a great job. Definitely had heart as he went on his own home.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really sad scene. I'm not used to seeing kind of a little emotional tug like we did, but he carried that off well. And then he comes bursting back, full on humor, as he tries to save civilization.
Yeah.
In his pickup truck and deepens his country accent.
I love it.
But, as it turns out, the girls kind of were saving themselves and didn't need it and were amply managing to free those who needed to be freed from the compound.
Yeah, absolutely. That, again, is so rare for an 80s film, having the women not need to be rescued. They got this. Right. And Hector's he's an afterthought, really, in this movie. But
exactly.
He does have some really strong, poignant moments. And I think it is interesting that he is a person of color. And it's so interesting because like nowadays we don't really think about it. But in 1984, that's a really big deal that he is your leading man.
Yes.
And not only that, but he has a relationship with kind of both girls, really. So, yeah, I mean, they're both interested in him. And that's very unique for 1984, for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Because even then, like, interracial relationships was very frowned upon. So it's very cool to see. And I didn't even think about it, but yeah, the kids, they are also, not what you would expect to see in 1984 is like the future of the civilization, for sure.
Right. Because they're the ones growing up in this post-apocalyptic world. So
Exactly.
they're kind of the generation that's growing up knowing the world before, and they will know and lead the world after, whatever that looks like.
How cool for the filmmakers to be like, we need diversity in this cast,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's incredible. It's unheard of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about the cast. But if there's anything else you want to throw in, feel free.
Also did want to I did want to mention another overlooked movie of the 80s that is not horror, Valley Girl. Great Romeo and Juliet, one of the many, we could have an entire conversation about overlooked classics of the 80s. Valley Girl, in my opinion, is one of them. Really fits into the younger sisters, Valley Girl persona, pep squad. She comes off as an airhead. So she's really kind of aligned with basically the central cast of Valley Girl, the movie. But there are references to Valley Girl in Night of the Comet.
Yeah.
In the beginning scenes, Catherine Mary Stewart plays, she works at a movie theater, and Michael Bowen, who is in Valley Girl, is her like hookup interest. And my God, why not? That boy was hot. So if you've seen Valley Girl, he's the main kind of bad boy in the movie. So there are a couple of references to Valley Girl when they go to the radio station. One of the albums that's pulled out to play is the soundtrack to Valley Girl. So I love that callback that not only was one of the leads of Valley Girl in Night of the Comet, you see the movie poster.
Yeah.
Which interestingly is not Deborah Foreman, the lead in that movie. That's a whole other conversation, but that there are references to it throughout. So I thought that was kind of a fun play, almost like, hey, here's another movie that's probably going to be overlooked. Why not give it a little bit of credit where we can? And it totally fit where the story was going. So it's not like it was some kind of paid product placement. I didn't do research to see if it was the same, maybe producers or studio that just felt there would be a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek to throw that in. But it's fairly rare to show that kind of collaborative support for one movie to another, especially in this era. They came out at pretty much the same time.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they're the same filmmakers. I didn't do research on that either, but I think that's very tongue-in-cheek and definitely intentional for sure.
Yeah.
But that's so much fun. Yeah, I love it. So let's get into the start of the apocalypse.
Yeah, let's.
So I think it's interesting. I love that they, like the ones that are outside, they all turn to dust when the comet comes, right?
Yes.
Which that is interesting because you don't see that hardly ever in post-apocalyptic. They almost immediately turn to some sort of creature.
Right.
And the metamorphosis into these zombies, I don't even consider them zombies because they're not after brains or anything. They just want to cause destruction, you know?
Yeah.
And the metamorphosis is so gradual, but it's distinct and noticeable when it starts to happen.
Yeah.
You know, because almost everybody, they start to wear the shades to hide the sunken in eyes, and they're very cranky. So what did you think about the choices to kind of like hold back almost?
I liked it. I thought that kind of restraint respected the budget. Again, this was not a big budget movie. So we're not talking not only are we not talking the era of CGI, we're talking like this was probably made on a shoestring. That they got so many scenes of downtown LA vacant brought me right back to the pandemic in looking at cities that there's no one on the streets. So I was like, this imagery is so far ahead. And I was thinking this could be very current. You have people that are scared of something they don't know or understand. Pandemic. Empty city streets, pandemic.
Yeah.
Obviously, economy's fully crashing, pandemic. I mean, It's like we've recently lived through something. So that immediacy, I'm like, yeah, I could absolutely see that because this has happened.
Yeah.
So I thought the effect of it, and I mean, it was probably gel, but the straining around of the clothing and so much of the outdoor party and that contrast between, buying the fun comic headgear, the hats, the glasses. It's a big party. They reference Halley's Comet, which, there was a lot of, oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen when it comes back? So a lot of this was rooted in our fear and fascination of the universe being so much bigger than us and what's gonna happen. Y2K was another one. Lots of people panicked about that, even though that was man-made. There are definitely mile markers in our recent history we can look at and say, could see this actually happening. It's not quite so sci-fi. I thought that was really well done. There are also really beautiful scenes with water toward the end when it does finally rain, and then suddenly everything gets washed away. So it truly is a cleansing. The rain, of course, symbolism is cleansing something. There's a major change. And then, the film basically ends. And that was really kind of those were interesting bookends to show.
Yeah, I think you make a great point. And it was funny because when I first watched this, I think it was during the pandemic. And I think that's why it really resonated with me so much the first time I watched it, because we were literally living through it.
Yeah.
It's like you said, like the streets were empty. And watching it a second time, I was just blown away by the fact that they were able to get that footage of downtown LA in such a time where that would have been really difficult. And something else I wanted to remark on is the red haze, the smog that's always present after everything. Like, that is such a beautiful tone. And I love how they did it to where it doesn't look cheesy, doesn't look over the top. It looks real.
Yes.
And it's perfect. Like, it's such a great color scheme, color palette to choose.
Yes.
And yeah, like you said, like, I love how the clothes are just scattered. It's very purposeful. It's, it's done in such a way where it's not too much. I love seeing like the empty car on the highway and it's blasting the music or whatever, but there's no one in there but the clothes. And obviously, when they get home, they see the clothes in the backyard and it's like, this is what's left of her. This is what's left of him. Like, that's such a great moment.
The immediacy of it. It's almost to the point like they might have done some study of Pompeii. And it just it just happened immediately. There's no evidence that anyone was trying to run, that there was any kind of, it just happened. So I like that they didn't do that. It just showed the immediacy of the effect of the comet.
And I think that's what really makes it truly terrifying is the people that got taken first. Like, they're really the lucky ones because they didn't know what was going on. It was just like in a poof, they're literally gone.
Right.
And it's the people that survive that have to figure out how to stay immune to whatever is spreading. Right. Yeah. And kind of going off of that, I really like the moment where you think that there might be something wrong with the sister, because she's like, oh, I have a rash or whatever. And it's like, it's never just what they think it is. But in this case, it actually is. And I love that play on typical tropes, right? And later on in the movie, she's explaining to Audrey that, oh, I get rashes all the time. I'm just a very nervous person. And I, even then, I feel like as the audience, you're still questioning, I don't know. But, it's a very nice kind of twist on your typical tropes. So.
Agreed. Yeah. It was I think a clever red herring, and it totally made sense. If there's a time to be nervous, it is now, especially as even the scientists were rubbing their eyes and wearing, glasses to not show the inadvertent exposure that they had. So I thought that was also very, very well done.
Yeah. And there's another shot that particularly stood out to me, and it's when you first see the government facility, right? And the guard on duty, in the forefront, and then you've got the scientists walking in the background. I just love how they did that, and it was probably something so simple and subtle, but I just love that visual of this is clearly the government. This is scarier than what's going on outside, right? Because they're responsible.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a really cool way to show something so, so, I feel like by the 80s, people were truly subconsciously terrified of their government, and that continues to show up in films during the 80s and 70s, 80s onward. But it's just such a simple way to show, hey, here's the real villains here.
Yeah, agreed. That was nicely done.
Yeah. So let's talk about the music in this movie.
Ooh. I have notes. I took notes in my last rewatch. A heavy 80s soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Very synth heavy pop, exactly what you would expect on K-Rock to hear in LA at that time. Love that Girls Just Want to Have Fun is a nice cover. We'll talk about that whole scene,
Yes.
but that just was absolutely perfect. Like Valley Girl, a lot of those the soundtrack of Valley Girl, that wasn't top 40. That was very underground. You had Plimsolls, you had Josie Cotton, you had this wasn't in mainstream radio, which is all you had at that time. So going to the movies, that's how you got to know music that was outside the realm of top 40.
Yeah.
So we were introduced to a lot through Valley Girl. Its soundtrack I actually still listen to. Bonnie Hayes is another one. So many great that really didn't crack the top 40 and make it into general radio play. But the music, I thought, the selections in Night of the Comet were really fun. They were appropriate. The soundtrack itself was eerie, also kind of 80s synth, but it just fit.
Yeah. It's like you're not like when, Girls Just Want to Have Fun come on, it still works. Like, even though it's like, this is a post-apocalyptic movie. Why are they going shopping? But it's like, it's an 80s movie. Like, if there's, I was telling my partner when we were watching this, because he'd never seen it, I was like, if this is an 80s movie, it needs to have like a shopping scene or, them trying on clothes, because this is not a true 80s movie without it.
Right.
And it still works in a horror movie, especially this kind of film where it's post-apocalyptic.
Yep.
And let's face it, when the world goes to shit, what are we going to do? Go for something that we've never had before. Like free range to all these designer brands. Like, yes.
Have at it.
Yeah.
Isn't that these girls' dream?
Yes, for real.
And gay boys too.
Yes.
To, be alone in, Marshall Fields or Bloomingdale's and just have at it.
Yes.
Perfume, cosmetics, hats, big shoulder. I mean, they're here for it. Yeah. That was a really nice moment of joy. That was just a nice bit of levity, and it completely fit the characters.
For sure. And I think it really, they could have easily just leaned into the horror aspect, but I like that the horror is broken up with some moments where they can really, show this connection between the sisters.
Yeah.
Because most of the movie, like you said earlier, they're fighting, and this is a moment where they can just have fun, let loose, and be themselves, and still kind of hold on to that semblance of the old world that they are comfortable with. So I love the shopping sequence. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the film, to be honest. And it's just a good time. So
just two sisters shopping at the Galleria. Why not?
Yeah. And, kind of going off of that, the fashion in this movie is so amazing. And I like how each sister has a very distinct style.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can definitely tell that they're sisters, but also quite different. And maybe 2 years apart is what I caught, probably. Catherine Mary Stewart is the senior.
Yeah.
Kelly Maroney's character is maybe a sophomore.
Yeah.
Figuring things out, focused on boys, pep rallies, and basically big hair. And that was really a nice contrast as well.
For sure. Yeah. And it's funny how there's so much you can do with clothes to establish a character. And I think they did such a great job of, showing the sisters in contrast to each other. The younger sister, she's clearly more provocative, she's more risque in her choices, whereas the older sister is definitely more, what's the word I'm looking for, conservative, I guess you'd say. So she's more she takes herself more seriously. So
agreed.
Yeah.
Also, even from the outset, so Regina is dressed in the movie theater usher. So she's already wearing pants. When she changes to go out, she's wearing pants. So this is she's not dressed in a mini skirt and heels. She's kind of already pre-dressed for a fight. She knows how to ride a motorcycle. She can take care of herself against the first zombie. So the clothing also kind of is a little bit of a foreshadowing. Versus when you first see Samantha.
Yeah.
She's in full Valley Girl gear, mini skirt, cute shoes, padded sweater, not ready to fight zombies.
Yeah.
So that contrast was also quite interesting, also kind of even gives the kind of like big sister protector, dad is away.
Yeah.
But, the younger sister, Sam, also comes into her own and really doesn't back down when she's challenged as well.
Yeah.
So I thought that, the clothing is something else that needs to be mentioned. The scientists, drab,
Oh, yeah.
just drab
Yeah.
on purpose. And that was really kind of interesting to see that there wasn't very much color, where you do have color when you're outside. You had mentioned the color, that you have the sky, and the shopping scene is also full of color, even though the lights aren't fully on in the department store.
Yeah.
But then everything with the scientists is drab. And I thought that worked well because then you see blood, you see that
Yeah.
bright red. And that was a wonderful color choice, I thought, for the contrast between this gray background, gray uniforms, this kind of nondescript symbol that they all wore.
Yeah.
And then you had that shock of red.
Yeah.
So that worked as well, I thought, as the movie went on.
Yeah, definitely. I also like towards the end when Sam is coming into the facility to kind of save her sister. I love that this is the first time I think we ever see her in pants.
Yeah.
And like she's prepared. I love how she's like humming the song and like she's basically channeling her sister Reg in this. And I just love that, character development that you really get. Like she is a valley girl. She likes to be cutesy, but she's not afraid to like do what needs to be done in the moment when it calls for it, which I think is huge for that particular character.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one other thing I wanted to mention in terms of like the plot, we mentioned restraint earlier in this film, and I think particularly when you have a post-apocalyptic world with women, I want to applaud the creators of this film for pulling back with the violence in this film. I think that there's still lots of violence. There's some moments where you're like, oh, but it is so easy to go the 28 days later route in post-apocalyptic worlds where there's lots of like, nods towards like rape and, assaulting women. And don't get me wrong, these women are put through very scary moments.
Yes.
But it never leans toward that point, even in the department store where it so easily could have. They just want, like the monsters, they just want to kill them. They don't care about furthering civilization, anything like that. And I think that's what really sets this movie apart for me. Is that like, yes, the women, they have to go through a lot of like scary moments, but that is never thought of. Like that's not even a situation that they get put in. And I really love that about this movie.
Agreed. That was refreshing to see that they were put in peril quite a bit, got themselves out or were helped out. Another thing is it is an 80s teen movie, so there has to be the obligatory one of the characters taking her clothes off, pretty much. And that could have been a setup for something horrible. It was not. There were also scenes, whether it's, it actually happened or a dream sequence where the sisters are asleep. There's the one who is kind of protecting. That could have gone a different direction. It didn't. So there were lots of really good choices made along the way. Again, I don't know if that was in, the original, if that was part of a conversation or if they just set out and said, these are the things we will do, these are the things we will not do. But as you said, just applause to the director, the producers, and the cast for following through on that level of respect.
For sure. Yeah. I think that really sets it apart for horror films at this time. Yeah. Any closing thoughts on Night of the Comet before we transition to something else?
I really do want to spend a moment and talk a little bit more about Mary Warnoff because there is a doc in progress right now to document this overlooked, amazing actor's life. We've seen Mary in roles, Charlie's Angels, where she was a prison warden, is one that a number of 70s television watchers will see and is in character actor roles throughout. Perhaps the other one that most people are familiar with is a movie called Eating Raoul, where Mary just absolutely shined. I think she brought to the character of Audrey a sense of morality that was missing from the other scientists. a sense of humor and warmth, as you said. I mean, it was definitely a moral compass.
Yeah.
And she played it absolutely perfectly.
Yeah.
In the beginning, she's this menacing presence. I mean, as someone you don't want to meet in a dark alley, I will say
Yeah.
that. This chick kicks ass.
Yeah.
And that's the aura she's got. And she played that through her career. But in this case, there was a more tender side as far as even leaving Hector all the instructions.
Yeah.
There were, looking back on this, sometimes 80s movies can get lost in dream sequences and flashbacks. And, we're going to show off our budget by going to this location that serves absolutely no purpose, that does not serve the story.
Yeah.
I really can't think of anything in the geography of the movie that isn't one thing leads to another, because you do have multiple locations, but everything linked up for me. And without Audrey, there would be no saving the world. So I think for that reason, she is, even though it was kind of a secondary character, she's extremely necessary. And just kudos to Mary for playing that character so precisely. It's one of the performances that stands out in my mind.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think Audrey is such a special character because she starts out with the villains, but she has such a tenderness about her towards the sisters, and particularly the youngest sister.
Yeah.
It's that moment where you think that she's like killing her, basically. Like, that is such a poignant moment where, she really like shelters her and embraces her, and is just really looking out for her and what's in the best interest of humanity continuing on. And she knows that where she was before, she messed up, right? And she's trying to correct that wrong almost. And I think that it really speaks volumes that she prepares Hector for what he needs to do, what the girls need to do.
Yep.
And like, that character is so special. And I think it's very easy to overlook her contributions to this movie. For
Agreed.
sure.
Completely.
Yeah. All right. So that is Night of the Comet. And I am transitioning from this movie a little bit early because I want to talk about you, David, and your horror contributions, which is the Summerdale book series. So the new book, the third and final novel, just came out in June of this year.
Yes.
So let's talk about Summerdale for people who aren't familiar.
Let's talk about Summerdale.
Yeah.
4 gay men, 4 addictions, 1 landlord from hell. It is a trilogy. It is set in Chicago's Andersonville neighborhood, and it was a lot of fun to be part of that journey and bring it to readers.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about the house in Summerdale.
Yes.
So the house is only visible to people who struggle with addiction, right?
Yes.
Whatever that addiction may be. That could be alcohol, drugs, body image, food, and the landlord, Mr. McGreevy, is very unique.
Yeah, he's very unique.
Yeah.
He is a supernatural sociopath, but I will say his greatest power is his hospitality. He is, in some cases, the nicest person in the lives of these tenants, but that kindness, that availability, over availability maybe, is all to gain the tenants' trust and use the information, the vulnerability, the weakness against them without them even realizing what happened. So as far as who he is, we can all relate. We've all met sociopaths, and this is how they enter your life. This is certainly how Mr. McGreevy enters the lives of the tenants, because he wants something from them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, as you were saying, these types of people tend to come into your lives when you're in a very vulnerable place and very unassuming, and they just kind of weasel their way in and just take advantage of every vulnerability. And I think that he has a great way of seeing what you need in that moment and getting it for you.
Yeah, there's no judgment. Everything is okay. He definitely wants more than just the rent. Something that's in general conversation that a lot of people are just becoming more aware of is the term love bombing.
Yes.
And that being kind of a borderline sociopathic tactic
Yeah.
to get into someone's life, to really play those vulnerabilities. So this isn't just in horror. This isn't just,
Yeah.
in fiction. This is very real. I've had friends who have been victims of it, and they're just left feeling even worse than before they met this person because they feel completely violated and used.
Yeah.
So that's another aspect of what he does.
Yeah.
To the tenants, he's always available. He always has time for you. He is
Mhm.
always only at the house or,
Yeah.
tending his boys, his roses,
Yes.
in the yard. So you don't physically see him elsewhere, but his presence is everywhere.
It's everywhere. Yeah, which is very difficult to do, I feel like, in a city like Chicago, but it works very well, especially I like the moments in the third book where they're on the train and just you feel this looming presence surrounding the characters. And
Yeah.
I think that it can easily be a lot for certain characters, and obviously like they give in to their darker instincts.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely it's complicity. If you go along with what he wants, if you do as he wants, you do not risk your privilege
Hmm.
in the house. You keep your amazing bedroom on the third floor of this beautiful four square. It is not a haunted house. There are no broken windows and torn curtains. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And all the characters are proud to live there, to call that home because they can see it. But the challenges and the tests of loyalty escalate. And just because you did well yesterday, it's what have you done for me today? So it just keeps going. And then, in my opinion, the least likely character of the tenants is really the one who figures things out, draws on the strength of his unlikely background to fight back and risks everything in doing so. But there's a moral compass to this that the others don't really have.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that I will say, like, as a reader, when you first start the series, you would never imagine that this particular person would be the hero of the series. And I think that
Right.
that speaks volumes, right?
And that was on purpose.
Yeah.
Really looking at someone who comes into a big city and is looked down upon, really underestimated, overlooked. That's a character I hear quite a bit from readers to say, I felt like that. I don't, because of how I look, because of how I dress, because of where I'm from, I don't belong in my own community. And I really wanted to reflect the idea there's nothing wrong with you. All the strength, everything you might be jealous of in other people is within you. Draw on that, and that is what is going to bring you peace, or in this character's case, survival.
Yeah.
Unlike others who just kind of fold.
Yeah. They basically just give up usually. Yeah. So we kind of spoke a bit about it off camera, but I wanted to ask you about how the elements play into the story, like the
Yes,
characters and everything. So I'll let you talk about that.
absolutely. One of the first things that I hear from readers who are into the first book, and maybe a little bit into the second, is, oh, this is the 7 deadly sins.
Mhm.
And yeah, these boys are into the 7 deadly sins. There is
Yeah.
definitely vanity, gluttony. Name one, it's in there. I'm certainly stoked by the landlord, but the choice of 4 characters was deliberate from the start, and that was to relate each one and each one's addiction and fall or survival to the 4 elements: air, water, earth, fire. So with that background and what they do to themselves and what addiction does to them relates to their final chapter in the story,
Yeah.
for better and for worse.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about, because ultimately, like, the reason why you wrote this book is to give something back to the community, right? So I guess, like, let's talk about, your inspiration a little bit in writing this story, and like why you think that this is such a necessary topic for our community right now.
Yeah, there are um, a lot of issues in Summerdale that are simply not talked about, primarily misogyny and racism in the gay community, and also substance abuse. So those are the big 3 that I wanted to bring through the characters. I wanted to do so in a way that was not confrontational to the reader, but said, I've been in these conversations, I have seen these situations. I have either cut off friends
Yeah.
or I haven't spoken up. And
Yeah.
that was the hardest one for me.
Yeah.
So when you're reading a book, it's private. It's
Mhm.
you're in a whether you're, your e-reader or looking at the paperback, it is a private conversation. It is one of the art forms that cannot be enjoyed passively, the way you can enjoy music passively, or there's other wonderful forms of art. You have to really pay attention. I really wanted that attention to the reader because there are some really egregious examples of casual and not so casual racism and misogyny and a lot of substance abuse for the purpose of fitting in or looking a certain way to fit in or to just take up space in a room because this feeling like you're not enough. You have to do this to be popular or to get tens of thousands of followers. You have to look this way. And it's making comment on how interchangeable we can look and act when we don't question why. The idea of fitting in is a big part of Summerdale. And McGreevy is very happy to keep that going because he knows that's a very central vulnerability for most of these tenants and the friends of tenants who also want to fit in.
Yeah.
The one that I'm most proud of talking about is the character of Eric and image and body image. And, even on social media, you're going to see ads coming up, you're fat. Your thinning hair is why you're not getting attention. Your wrinkles aren't why you're not getting attention. Take this pill, inject this, do this non-invasive surgery. Everything is telling you that you're not okay. You're not okay the way you are. Women have known this forever. The marketing, basically the revenue stream has opened up more to gay men. So we're getting bombarded with the same feelings of you're inadequate the way you are.
Yeah.
You need to buy this, wear this, look like this.
Yeah.
That's another part of the conversation we're really not talking about in the community.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I definitely have noticed that it's definitely leaning more towards men as well as women. And it's everywhere. It's not just social media. It's YouTube and Disney and it's all in the ads that are played to you. And they know what they're doing because if you think you're perfect the way you are and, boost up your self-esteem, awesome. But you're not going to keep buying our products.
Right.
And the number of the GLP-1 ads about hair loss and the weight loss and everything, it is draining because it's every single I don't know, 5 minutes you've got an ad, and that is almost always one of them. And it's it just came out of nowhere. I feel like since 2020, it's just boom, you're not I don't know what happened after the pandemic, but people are just so obsessed all over again with body image, and it's truly draining. I see people all the time oh, we're getting hair plugs, oh, we're on Ozempic, and I'm why?
Why?
It's okay.
You're in a test booster. Your testosterone is too low. We have this pill to fix you, to make you better, to make you more of a man.
Yeah.
So that's even going into this kind of toxic, what is a man,
Yeah.
I can choose what that looks like.
Exactly.
And who's to say, and a lot of this really does come down to simple marketing, ads of the past, ads from the 50s and 60s that really played on this. And oh my God, I can't believe people fell for that. Look what we're falling for now.
Yeah.
Which is, in my opinion, far worse.
Yeah.
Because we're living in it and we idealize these celebrities who have had the enhancements and surgeries. And that is their right. I'm not saying this to judge, but, comparison is the thief of joy is often said. That I really want to reach across the readership and say, you're okay the way you are. There's no one way to be a gay man. There's no one way to be anybody in our community under our rainbow. That should be the beauty of it, is not assimilating, not all looking and acting and dressing the same. So that's part of the horror of it, is the cloning. And I'm proud of that. I'm also proud of the way I tried to and hopefully did approach alcoholism in our community. which is something else we don't talk about. We're coming into spooky season, huge celebrations. I mean, I have to just give a shout out to North Halstead.
Yeah.
The decorations on Halstead are amazing.
Aren't they fun?
They bring it out. I mean, a little Ferris wheel full of zombies. And the killer clowns, it's just so much joy. But we're also coming into the high drinking, partying season, which is why I'm really excited to partner with organizations like Read and Run Chicago. We're doing an event on October 29th where readers of Summerdale, we will go to the different locations in the novels and then go back to the Lost Hours for the book discussion. That's a social and sober evening. And what we're offering to the community and to anybody who is interested in being in a book club, talking about queer horror, not everything needs to be centered around alcohol. And we're coming to the time of year where there's going to be a lot of expectation of keeping up with partying, and drinking, and not everyone is comfortable with that for a variety of reasons. So that's something else that I definitely wanted to make comment on in Summerdale.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned the read and run. Is this inclusive to all people? I know people hear read and run and they're like, oh no, I can't run.
I can't run. You don't have to. There's no final girl. We all survive. Read and Run is, Allison Yates has just put together such an amazing organization here in the city. They have dozens of routes for classic Chicago novels, temporary Chicago novels, fiction and nonfiction, and also into the suburbs. So it's an 11-mile pace. You can walk. This is thoroughly guided throughout. So it's not just, someone in front, someone in the back. I mean, we've got guides along the way. There are several stops. I join, so I'm very happy to, throw in some backstory where I can, but the guides are going to be absolutely amazing with their narration of every stop. There will be some special surprise stops and maybe some guest stars that are going to come in, and it's a lot of fun. I love what I hear from the readers of Summerdale. If they've read all three, if they've just read one, I was going into this with the approach of porous on purpose. I'm not a writer who is going to densely pack every page with over description. A lot of writers do this, and that's fine. That's just not my style. I wanted to allow enough breathing room between the page for the reader to bring in their own scary stories, their own background, their own faith tradition to make sense of what's going on. So what's great for me is the book discussion at the end, and I will find readers telling me, oh, this is what I got out of it. Or did you mean this? And I'm like, no, actually I didn't, but I love that. And that just validates that I gave enough leeway on the seesaw that they could find themselves in the story, maybe in the house, maybe with the characters. And some people, for some, Mr. McGreevy is their favorite character.
Yeah.
So it's exciting for me to think that maybe, in the future, if, knock on wood, this does become a limited series, that's kind of where I'm going next to pitch, that this character is added to the canon. That would be a tremendous accomplishment to add someone to, a meme or a catchphrase or, referencing the coffee mugs, and that there's just a lot of humor in it, because I wanted this to be a fun read, even for people who don't necessarily read horror, that they could get something out of it.
For sure. Now, you write other books besides just horror, so let's talk about, some of the things that have come out recently and maybe something you have in the works.
Absolutely. So my first novel, Gay Bash, which I brought out in 2014, is set in Lakeview. It's about a reserved gay man who fights back against two attackers and changes his life. There was a suspenseful scene that I wrote that happens toward the end of the book. And I love that play with words and time and suspense. And that's what gave me the confidence to move forward with Summerdale, and the rather odd narrative structure that it has, with one character per chapter over 3 books, all kind of coming together at the very end. As I was finishing up Summerdale, which made me incredibly sad because I've been with these characters for almost 10 years, I went back to an old draft of a romance book called Single and Cooking. Book 1 is out, so it is completely different, other than falling in love is scary.
Yeah.
This is about a very regimented and popular English professor who is taking sabbatical at the beach in Rehoboth Beach. He's away for a summer and, quite to his surprise, finds new opportunities with career and romance after 50. So this very accomplished, very tenure track, this is my future.
Yeah.
I like shaking that up and being around a kind of a colorful town full of people that help him see that he could be so much more than what he is. Like, he's the one holding himself back from taking this next step. He just needs a lot of love and support around him to convince him. So that's kind of where book 1 ends. Book 2 will be out next June.
Yeah.
And it's just great fun. We're going, it's my favorite time of the year. But, you know, writing about drag queen volleyball on the beach and, you know, going in the ocean when we're actually in fall and winter is really great. So that helps me be okay with not going away like all of my friends will be. So I've really enjoyed writing in different genres. Romance is also new for me. So that's what I'm working on now. And afterward, I don't know. I'll have 6 books on my table at my events. And I don't really know what's coming next. And that's kind of scary and exciting.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much for coming on and talking horror with me. But, you know, it's always great catching up with you and just talking about the community at large. Before we go, I just want to ask you, and you kind of touched on this briefly, but is there any advice you would give to people in our community right now with everything going on?
Stand up, fight back. And now is the time to be loud. I will also say now is the time to get in touch with that creative spirit that so many of us have tamped out. This is not my original thought, but it so bears repeating. The world needs more art, not less. Art can save, art can soothe, and we need more of it. So if you have ever wanted to start writing that book, acting, getting back to that music that you left behind because you needed to follow this career, now is the time to do that. Renew your creative soul because we're all going to need it in the time we're in and the time ahead. This is a time for artists to be out with who they are.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you again for coming on. It's always a pleasure. And just thank you for all that you do. We appreciate you. Thank you for giving a voice to the Chicago community. And we are looking forward to having you back on.
I can't wait. Thank you so much, Nia.
Of course. Bye.
Bye.